Welcome to the boardroom tonight, everyone. It is now Monday, the 14th day of the month of May, and we just had a gorgeous day outside, and we're glad to see everybody in here with us tonight. This time, we always begin our meeting with a prayer and the pledge to the flag. So if you'd be so kind as to stand, please, and Commissioner McPeters will listen to the prayer, and Commissioner Vaughn will listen to the pledge.
Let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you've given us, Lord. It is a beautiful day. Thank you for our health, and Father, we pray for the well-being of our county. Pray for our citizens, our staff, our workers, dear God, each and every day. Just watch over and protect them. Pray for our military. God, we thank you for saving us. Thank you for your Son, Jesus, died upon the cross for our sins. Save us, dear God. Just help us and guide us tonight in this meeting, we do pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, gentlemen, you have the minutes before you. Are there any additions or deletions to the minutes as presented tonight?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Now we need to approve the agenda for tonight. Any additions or deletions there? What's the pleasure of the board?
Move we approve the agenda.
Second. Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, great. Let's move to our first item on our appointment schedule, and this is the Kids and Parks Proclamation, and we have a very special young lady with us tonight, Audrey Elliott, and she was recently named a Bison Buddy Student Ambassador by the National Park Trust. So we are so excited to have her here, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what she's doing, and she's a very strong and good advocate for youth engagement in local, state, and national parks. So we're excited to have you in the boardroom, and your parents or whomever's with you can come up, and we want to hear what you got to say. Yes, ma'am. Y'all come to the podium, please. That'd be fine.
So first, I would like to say this is Buddy Bison.
All right.
Then I am I help the national parks help kids get outside and enjoy the parks that we have, and not not think it's something and just walking trails. It's more to that. It's getting outside and having fun, and you can do multiple things, like you can go swimming in the lake. If you're at Lake James, you can go fishing, you can go canoeing, and you can do all those things. And then for my Buddy Bison Student Ambassador, it's kind of the same thing, just getting kids outside and having fun.
Okay, great. Tell me something. Audrey, what got you interested in being a Bison Buddy Student Ambassador?
So when I was 5, I went to Lake James for a trash cleanup on the beach, and it was a competition, and we found out there that there was a junior ranger that you could go to every state park, and then we found out that there was national parks, and we started doing more and more.
What's the best thing you like to do at the park?
At state parks, they're different from national parks, so at state parks, I like to, especially at Lake James, I like to go on the Discovery Trail because they have all the activities, and they have like the different track trails and things like that. And at the national parks, I like to see all the history around and background around the parks. and they have different museums, and they're really cool. And yeah, and that's it.
Well, you're a very good speech. You give good speeches and you talk very good.
Thank you.
How old are you?
What did you say?
How old are you?
Oh, I'm 10 years old.
All right, great. Well, I'll just say this: there's probably not a lot of 10-year-olds who would come in here and talk like you did, and talk so well like you did, and have so much knowledge about the difference between a state and the national park, like you just told us. So you did great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's give her a hand, everybody. Now we want to get before you leave, we want to get our picture made with you and what's that Bison's name?
Buddy Bison.
Buddy Bison. But first, we're going to do a proclamation. Okay. First, the board needs to take action. So the board has a proclamation, and we want to go ahead, if the board votes to do so, and proclaim May 19th as the Kids to Parks Day in McDowell County. Okay. So what's the pleasure of the board concerning the proclamation first?
I make a motion we declare May the 14th as Kids to the Parks Day.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. May the 19th, great. So now what we're going to do, Audrey, this is Vice Chairman McPeters. He's going to read this proclamation, okay, declaring May 19th to be the Kids to the Parks Day. All right, so you stay right there, okay?
I'll come up with you. How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
Kids to Park Day Proclamation. Whereas May the 19th, 2018 is the 8th Kids to Parks Day organized and launched by the National Park Trust, held annually on the third Saturday of May. And whereas Kid to Parks Day empowers kids and encourages families to get outdoors and visit America's parks. And whereas it is important to introduce a new generation to our nation's parks. And whereas we should encourage children to lead a more active lifestyle, to combat the issues of childhood obesity, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, and hypercholesterolemia. And whereas Kids to Parks Day is open to all children and adults across the country to encourage a large and diverse group of participants. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will broaden children's appreciation for nature and outdoors. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the McDowell County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim to participate in Kids to Parks Day. We urge residents in McDowell County to make time, May 19th, 2018, to the children in their lives, to the neighborhood, state, or national park, adopted this 14th day of May, 2018.
All right, now. Come on, guys and ladies. Let's go out here. We're going to get our picture made with you. Now, we want you to be in the very front and the middle. There you go.
Stand
Buddy
up,
Bison.
stand up top. Okay. You're up front.
Saying I'm short. You're better looking than this.
Everybody give Audrey another hand right there. She's doing a great job. Okay, our board, and I'm very proud to say our board has been heavily involved in the greenways and giving and providing opportunities for people to get out and exercise, and money well spent. Let's move to the next item on our agenda. This will be the recognition of our sheriff, our retiring sheriff, Dudley Greene. Mr. Greene, come on up, my friend, to the podium, sir. As you well know, our sheriff has had a very good tenure and done an excellent job leading the department. And it's been a real honor, Sheriff, to work with you these years as a commissioner. One thing I'll say about Sheriff Greene before we move on is I've never seen a better steward of the county taxpayers' money than that man right there. And I've never seen a man who's so willing to partner with a board to provide safety for the people in this county. Sheriff, my hat's off to you for the job you've done. You've been a friend. You've been a great sheriff. You've no scandals. How many departments in North Carolina get racked with scandals and things like that? No scandals. Nobody can rightfully say anything about your department. And Sheriff, we appreciate you, and we know that Ricky's going to do a great job, but we sure are going to miss you. We're going to miss you. It's been an honor to work with you as commissioner. And we've got, I'll give everybody a chance to speak here in a minute. We've got a resolution, and we know we get the honor of presenting you your gun and the badge tonight, and it's just a sad day, but a good day. We know you get to go and play some golf. Tony talks about how bad he beats you on the golf course when y'all play, so I want you to practice that and beat him next time y'all go out. According to, now, I don't know if I should believe all that about him beating you, Sheriff.
He's carried me around a time.
So anyway, but we do appreciate you, and I know your staff does, and training, and just amazing to work with you these years.
Thank you so much. The honor's been mine.
And I'll go ahead and Barry, you go next, and we'll start down the board right here.
Sheriff, I just want to say congratulations to you. And I was looking down through some of the statement, well, I won't say statements, but it said, resignation and retirement. And, I kind of hate to use those words as you resigning. It's just, to me, retirement's better, from my perspective, in respect of the position that you hold. And I don't want you to ever feel like you're resigning, because sometimes that's bad when the media gets a hold of it. They had to resign. You're not having to resign, you're just retiring. And I commend you for your work. One of the things that sticks out in my mind a lot, teaching in school, is I use you as an example a lot on a murder case that was cold for quite a few years. And you probably know the one I'm talking about, probably, 20 years, something like that. How that you stepped up and took the lead, and you brought justice to that family. And I want to say I appreciate you doing that, because I knew that family, and I think a lot of us around here knew family members. And that says a lot, that you never gave up for all those years. And I just want to tell you, I appreciate the job that you have done, the integrity that you have for this department. You fell right in behind another sheriff that I was very highly he was my friend, and I still I consider you my friend. And if you ever need us, do not hesitate to call.
Well, thank you, sir. That works two ways.
Okay, Tony.
Well, Dudley, I don't need to say too much about what a good sheriff you've been. Everybody knows that. But one of the things I would like to say is I had the opportunity to make friends with you, and you've been a good friend to me, and we had some good times and some laughs out on the golf course. And contrary to what David said, I didn't carry you. But in the case that Barry was talking about, I think that's the one that I was the one that found that lady, wasn't it?
You were.
Yeah, I was the one that found that lady. But anyway, I appreciate the good job you've done, and I'm not going to call you sheriff. I'm going to call you Dudley as a friend, and I appreciate the great job you've done, and I consider you a dear friend. And I want us to continue to get out and hit a ball every once in a while.
Let's do it. And I as well, and I was Dudley long before I was sheriff. So,
Lee, go ahead.
Sheriff, number one, it was an honor to serve with you and under you. We had some rough times, but we had some good times.
yes, sir.
There were times where we had to stand with families and just stand there with our arms around each other and cry because we couldn't understand why that things happened the way they did. But there were other times when we just laughed and cut up and had some good times, and I'll remind you about one. When you were captain of detectives before you became sheriff, and I had just been made a detective, you called me into your office with another detective and a lady and asked me to take notes, if you remember. And I hope that during your retirement, you have time to sit quietly and reflect on that.
Maybe I can find a squeaker box somewhere.
She sure had some things in her head going on.
She sure did, yeah.
And another time when we were sitting on a house, watching a house, we were sitting there in a car about 2:30 in the morning, and we heard the whippoorwills chirping outside and had a little conversation about that. You'll remember that.
Lynn Greene's the only one that I know that can tell whether there's actually two whippoorwills out in the woods or one's just blowing through another one.
We had some good times. Good times.
Yes, sir.
I'll never forget you, Dudley. I appreciate you, appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your integrity, your honesty, and never one time did you tell me when to come to work or when to go home. Except one time I remember we'd worked about 36 hours one weekend on a murder case, and you said, we need to go home and get some rest. But I appreciate you. You're my friend and my brother.
I appreciate you, my friend. Certainly do.
Okay, Brenda.
Oh, my goodness. I'm about like you. I get all broke up here. I've had the honor of working under 3 sheriffs in this county, but I guess the closest one I've ever been to was you, Sheriff Greene. And in a lot of ways, you don't feel like nothing except one of my own. I'm a little bit older, and you just about feel like one of mine. So I appreciate everything you did for me, every opportunity you ever gave me. A lot of them I didn't deserve, but I sure did appreciate them and tried to be like that rat on the wheel and keep up with you. Because now let me tell you something. If you've ever tried to keep up with Dudley, it's like you're this way. Because he's done thought it through, got it planned out, laid out. It's done. You got to catch up. He is very, very analytical. And I enjoyed my time. I enjoyed working there. I appreciate the county for allowing me to, and appreciate you for choosing me to be one of your team.
Well, thank you so much for being part of that team, and Lynn, and you're the reason I've still got some hair left. No offense, Buck. I'm just. Thank you. Love you.
Thank you.
If I could say a word, just let me say how much. I believe it was 10 years and 2 days ago. I stood here in this room, and one leg of my journey as sheriff took place when this board accepted the recommendation or the nomination of the executive committee and appointed me sheriff. I remember the chairman at that time was Andy Webb, and he and I y'all took a break in the meeting and walked upstairs, and he proceeded to swear me in as sheriff here in the county. And like I say, that was 10 years and 2 days ago. And since that time, I've had the privilege. It has been I won't say it's always been a pleasure. I will say it's always been an honor and a privilege, though, to serve the people, serve as sheriff, but not only serve as sheriff, but to serve here in this county. It's a pretty special place. I have remarked several times over the years. The last 2 or 3 years have particularly been hard years to be in law enforcement. But I've remarked to our personnel several times they're blessed to be working in a place here in McDowell County where other places where they were rioting in the streets against law enforcement, the outreach from the community, from businesses to churches to school groups to classrooms to the Board of Commissioners having a reception and passing a resolution in support of law enforcement. It's pretty doggone special. And I just want to say how much I appreciate this board, this staff that you have over here. Never once that I can think of have I reached out and had a need for something that the staff and the board have not tried to help with that. And I don't think that can be said everywhere. And I just appreciate all the support for our mission and my administration of the sheriff's office and our personnel that you all have provided over the years. And I wish you all the best and continued success. And if I can ever assist you in this role for the next 14 days or after, but who's counting, you know, or after that, please don't hesitate to call on me, and that goes for all the citizens here in McDowell County. So thank you so much for the opportunity to serve. And there is a good man waiting in the wings to take that on. I understand the executive committee is going to be presenting a nomination, and I fully support that nomination, and have no doubt that that he's going to have a good board here to work with as well. And just thank you all so much on a personal level, professional level, and as a citizen of this county. Thank you.
Can I
Sheriff, don't go anywhere.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
I'd like to say one more thing. There's somebody else here we need to recognize. Allison. Would you stand? I know. I know that Dudley is a good sheriff, partly because of you. Many times you've had to sacrifice and let him go and do his job, and that takes a special somebody, and we thank you also and hope that y'all enjoy your retirement together.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for helping me remember that. I would have got it. I would have.
Okay, Jim, we have a piece of action to take care of, a couple items. Number one, with the retirement of the sheriff, he has probably had the same service weapon for how many years, Sheriff?
A couple of years. Fortunately, the board was able to get all of our officers some new sidearms not terribly long ago. And again, we appreciate that, keeping them in good equipment. And we appreciate that so much.
Welcome. Thank you, sir. So what's the pleasure of the board concerning the firearm and the badge?
Move that we approve his firearm and badge for his retirement.
Okay, do we have a second?
A second.
All right, discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Now, we also have a resolution here, a resolution of appreciation recognizing Sheriff Dudley Greene for his many faithful years of service. Let's take action on this, and we'll go ahead and move forward and present. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion we approve the resolution.
Okay,
Second.
discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, Sheriff, I want to read this to you. The board has adopted this resolution of appreciation to a good man, and I'm going to read it to you, okay? Whereas Sheriff Dudley Greene has served the people of McDowell County in law enforcement for 25 years, and whereas Sheriff Greene has served as the McDowell County Sheriff for 10 years, and whereas Sheriff Greene has worked tirelessly during his term to fight crime and protect the safety of the people of McDowell County, and whereas Sheriff Greene has worked with the Board of Commissioners, the Board of Education, and others to improve the safety of the county schools. And I want to stop real quick and make a note. This is not the resolution, but along those same lines, the sheriff, in light of the violence that's occurred in schools all across our nation, the sheriff went ahead and midstream set aside revenue out of his budget to go ahead and provide RSOs or security officers at each school. And he did that out of his own money. Give him a hand right there for that. The county's going to pick it up in our next year's budget, this budget coming up. But we appreciate what you did. You saw the need and went ahead and acted. Whereas Sheriff Greene oversaw the expansion and renovation of the McDowell County Law Enforcement Center, whereas Sheriff Greene has modeled a strong sense of professionalism, courtesy, and community engagement, now therefore be it resolved that the board extends its appreciation and best wishes to Sheriff Dudley Greene and his family for his years of service to the profession of law enforcement in McDowell County and extends their best wishes to him on his retirement from public service. Adopted this the 14th day of May 2018 by the Board of Commissioners. Sheriff, it's been an honor.
Thank you. It's been the honor of a lifetime.
Allison, come on up here. We're going to get a couple of pictures right here. All right. Let's get you, Allison, right here. You're right there. No, you get right there. You stay right there, Allison. All right, our board. Ben, you get right beside the sheriff right there. Get right down there. Get right down there. Yeah, you're right
Been with
there.
us from the beginning.
Right.
You get in the middle.
All right, you ready? Now, I want to get a picture of all of the officers in the room tonight, too. I want y'all to come up here.
Let's go ahead.
Come on, Mike, get up here.
I'm always available.
Jack, get up here.
I love you, man.
I don't make you off duty. I mean, look. Let's get over. Sheriff, we appreciate you. You've been clean. I appreciate you. Let's get your guys. Mike, get up here, County Sheriff. Watch out now.
It's a rough-looking bunch here.
Get everybody in here. Get some more inside right here.
How'd you get Jack in here even? Oh, you snuck in?
Can we get some out? You need some other side chair?
Everybody can see me, because you can't see me.
Can you see Ricky?
Can you see
Yeah,
Ricky?
they do.
I just can't see my head shot.
Y'all let's give Sheriff one more hand. And all the officers here tonight. All the officers. It takes a team, doesn't it, Sheriff?
It
You got a
sure
good
does.
team. You got a good team.
Sure does. Blessed with a mighty good group.
All right, next item on our agenda, public transportation. And we have our esteemed public transportation director, Mr. Randall Conley. Sir, come on up to the podium. Well-known Dallas Cowboy fan. Everybody knows that in McDowell County. And you're doing a good job. I'm hearing good things, and we're excited about this. And at this time, I'll go ahead and declare the board in a public hearing pursuant to Federal U.S. Code 49, Section 5311. So, Mr. Conley, good to have you here tonight. Mr. Wooten, sir, anything you need to do to lead out on
I don't
the topic?
think so.
Okay.
He's going to handle it, I think.
The floor is yours, Mr. Director.
All right, thank you for having me again. Also, I have Jennifer Baptiste, our state NDS, who's here with us as well, and also I have Kathy McKinney here with us as well. Again, good evening for having me. I'd like to present my administration and capital funding for the public transit, which we'll be receiving from the state along with the county match in fiscal year 19. In our administrative line, we'll be looking at a budget of $194,484,000 with a state contribute of $165,236 with a county contribute of $24,787. Capital-wise, the capital budget is a competitive budget, and we are in need of van replacements in this first year, so most of our capital will be going towards van replacements, and we'll be replacing 3 vans this year. And the capital budget is $190,500 with a 10% county match of $19,050. To be able to receive these funds from the state, there are required documents which you should find in your packet that will be approved and assigned before we are able to receive state revenue. These documents require a signature of an authorized delegate, which the board will also need to select who that will be. Contacting many counties, their county manager usually be that person to be their authorized representative. Just to give a heads up, the following documents will need to be approved and signed are the certification and assurance anticipated DBE, our DBE certification, our fiscal year 19 resolution, our local share certification, our special selection 5333B warranty, and also our Title VI document. That's all I have to present. If we can move along to the public hearing.
Okay. We are in a public hearing setting regarding the information you've heard tonight, the budget for the Transportation Department. And we'll start on this side of the room. If anyone is present who wishes to speak concerning the information you've heard tonight, just state your name and the floor is yours. So we'll start right here. Anybody on the second row, third row? Anybody in the back? Anybody on this side, my left? Okay. All right, there a motion, we go out public hearing?
Motion to go out public hearing.
Do you have a second? Discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Conley, action needed is to approve the items, and staff is recommending approval of all items, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And if you can
Go ahead.
follow the recommendation to have the manager sign, I'll be glad to do so.
Okay. Well, what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, we approve the funding application, all other documents pertaining to the transportation.
Second that motion.
Discussion, is that also adding?
Also adding Ashley
Okay.
to be able to approve, yes.
Okay. All right. Further discussion? There being none, what's the pleasure? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay. Randall, how you liking your new location?
Oh, no, we're just starting to get in there, get going out of there. It's been pretty good. The drivers out there, they love it, and it's a not too big of a space, but it's a bigger space than we had, and we're really liking it. And we've been using the conference room a lot. They've been giving access to us. We've been holding board meetings and stuff there, so it's been working out pretty well in our favor.
Well, good. Well, and the board does appreciate the Foothills Group making that space available at a very cost-efficient lease, so we do appreciate that too. And Jennifer, good to have you here in Little Marion, North Carolina, from the big town of Raleigh, I assume, right?
Yes, it's good to be here.
We appreciate your work and the state's work on helping us get this transportation system up and running. And, folks, that's real dollars right there in his request. $190,000 for capital funding. State pays, county pays 10% of that. So we do appreciate the state and their partnership. Without the state, we wouldn't be sitting here not approving documents and talking about this. So we do appreciate the state and the partnership we have with the state, as always. And Kathy, I know you're excited about the whole transportation program, so we appreciate the work you're doing too. Randall, is that everything you needed from us tonight? Okay, any other comments from board members?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Randall, thanks, and go Cowboys.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And your cowboy tie is coming, okay? Yeah. All right. With that being said, let's move to the next item. And we're a little ahead of schedule now, so let's move to old business. Mr. Wooten, our county manager, will go to item A, the shooting range update, sir. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir. Brief update. I spoke with our contact, Mr. Gardner, at the NC Wildlife probably about 2 weeks ago. They had a brief discussion of the McDowell Range at their most recent Wildlife Commission meeting. It's just a brief update to them. I have spoken with staff with Senator Heiss. There still is a desire from the senator to have dedicated funding for the McDowell Range in the state budget that will be approved in the next couple of months. So that's definitely something that we will keep an eye on as that process takes place. And that was about $500,000 that's been discussed at this point. There has been some level of discussion as far as the use of the property and possibly transferring portions of the property to the state. I've spoken with a couple of commissioners about that as I've learned information. And so that's really to be determined what the request would be. My understanding is any level of land that's transferred to the state, that value of that land will help pull down federal funds to pay for the land, the range.
Would there be a reversion that if it ceased to be used for a range, it would revert back to McDowell County?
I would strongly recommend anytime we have deeded property to the state, the Armory comes to mind, there's been a reversion clause. And so in this instance, if it's 5 acres or 10 or whatever, I would strongly recommend you have a reversion for that type. If they walked away, you wouldn't want it sold to open market or whatever. You want it to come back automatically. So definitely any updates I receive from Senator Heiss, his staff, or wildlife, I'll certainly pass on.
Okay. Comments from board members or questions? There being none, let's move to our next item under old business. This will be item B, the Stacy Hill Road water line. And we've got information given to us. So, Mr. Reed, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. You do have handouts underneath your agenda cover sheet that information I received probably at 3:30 today that really just kind of summarizes and puts a fine tooth on what you have before you. Again, we opened bids probably about 2 months ago on this project. And bids were very high at that point. And so we rebid the project at your direction, and bids were high again. I think we see a trend. The engineer was honestly disappointed at this last rebid. He thought the bids would be lower than they were, but he was maybe more surprised than anyone. And there has been, I've heard from some folks, there's a lot of talk about international trade and tariffs and different things, and a lot of the vendors are worried about pricing. And so we've actually had calls on our courthouse project because of some of this market movement. And so that's a possible theory why we've seen some of the pricing issues. But what you have, we've had a low bid that's come in. It was $1,208,030 was the low bid. What we had estimated from the engineer was about $200,000 less than that. And a big difference of this is not the entire loop. So again, you have US 70 and you have Harmony Grove going towards the interstate. The goal was to close that loop from 70 to the Harmony Grove intersection. When we rebid the project, just to get some idea on pricing, they did shorten the line to remove a creek crossing. And so what you see before you, the 1.2 million, would not even loop the entire line. So it is disappointing, but there are some options for you if you so proceed. You have the funding plan that you looked at, I believe, in September, which has been slightly revised with this information. If you decide to proceed, you would have about $450,000 of loan proceeds, your EPA grant of about $370,000. A capital reserve we have of about $100,000, and then a fund balance appropriation of about $500,000. Again, these are very large numbers. This is the best we can come up with to get this part of the project completed.
Mr. Reed, remind us, the board, the amount that we had talked about from fund balance that we were looking to allocate on the whole project.
Originally, you had approved conceptually at about $365,000. So there is obviously an increase at this point. And what you would have at this, quote, cheaper option, you would have a line that would go from about not quite the Candy Acres to Harmony Grove intersection. So you would have a fairly low density in the line and the area that would not be served. Most of the area would be served where most of the homes and churches, et cetera. The project would also relocate the master meter to where that future tie-in would be, and that is a cost, but staff would recommend moving forward with that relocation now since the city has agreed to that. So you are picking up several thousand feet of line there at no current cost. That was prior cost there 20 years ago.
What is the cost to go from 72 Candy Acres? Well, that's less than a quarter of a mile.
The alternate bid was about $450,000 from this contractor.
Just for that small.
Right, and a lot of that is the bore underneath the creek. A suggestion would be if you did this base bid and wanted to wait on the gap, there's a couple of options. We could ask the engineer to redesign it to do an open cut on the creek, which is cheaper. It does involve more environmental review, so it may wash out in the end with the revision that you would save on the lower bid. But regardless of that method, we could look at grant funding for that section. We are not allowed to, if you go with this plan, we are not allowed to go for bank financing until this loan is paid off, since it is a non-LGC approved approach. So that's about 5 years. So try this. Look at grants. Grants don't work. Several years down the road, go for an additional bank loan, probably. Just a couple of options.
Okay, it would have been great to have had that system tied in together and loop in that way. We're not paying for water being dumped on the ground, but we'll still keep plugging away. Comments or questions? Direction. Are you seeking direction tonight this week?
What I would ask, I know some folks have to be out of town next week, if there's a consensus to move forward. We do not have the bank financing back yet. I wanted to see what the feeling was first. But if there is a consensus to move forward, we would like to at least get three together next Monday night, maybe at 5, to approve the bid and approve financing so we can get going on construction.
Okay. Jim, what's the pleasure of the board?
I want to stop progress. I wish we could tie that in, because that, I'm supportive of it, so I'm not mistaken. I just wish we could tie it all in. It needs to be done. We're going to do it at one time instead of, but I'll support it.
Is that a motion?
You can talk to everybody else first.
Okay.
I had asked Ashley earlier about how long it would take us to recoup our expenses. And it's going to take quite a bit of time to recoup that kind of money. But the problem is that particular area, we have citizens whose wells are failing.
It's terrible.
And it just seems like it's probably our duty to provide that service to them. It's not everywhere you go you can drill a good well.
It's my opinion that we move on with it.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the staff proceed with looking at this project and the bank financing.
I second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Well, I can't say gentlemen all the time now, I'm sorry. Brenda, thank you, commissioners, for that.
Now,
I worked in the jail, so I'll answer to anything.
Okay, it is good for the record to have Brenda Vaughn on the board. She was appointed to fill out the remainder of Matthew Crawford's term, and now so we're looking forward to working with her. At this time, let's move to our appointment schedule, and we've got a 5:45 appointment, and we have Mr. Chuck Abernathy here to talk about an anniversary, and a long and an old anniversary at 175 years. So the floor is yours, Mr. Abernathy.
Thank you. The document has been amended from the one that is in the computer, so we can focus on this. I've given the media a copy. Everybody okay? You ready?
All right, floor is yours.
Okay, the City of Marion and McDowell County, and thank you for having me, celebrated their anniversary when they were 100 years old, 125, and 150. This year we're 175. In 25 years we'll be 200. But this year is the 175th celebration. Someone suggested, either Ashley and Bob or the two boards suggested, that the Carson House kind of coordinate and steer the events. And so Amanda Finn and I co-chair the initiative to celebrate the 175th celebration. And so we have been meeting for about 4 months now, and it's really to the point that things are taking shape, but we really do need to get the word out more than we've done and start tying down everything so that this goes like it needs to go. So if it's okay, what I'll do is review with you where we are, and there's one huge question that we've got you plugged in for that we've read in the paper, that you're doing that document monument. And so we want to, if possible, tie that in to the event. So is everybody okay with that? The celebration will occur September 22nd, which will begin on that day and go for 1 week. Okay? And it will kick off with a 5K historic fun run that will be held at the Greenway, and we'll have a history tied to it. And we'll have reenactors and other things at that event. We want to also have a historic pet parade, and I say that and almost start laughing, but it's actually, people love these things, and there's a lot of interest that people have in it. Now, we do not have a sponsor for this yet, but Ashley is going to work with us, with the animal groups, to try to secure somebody that would coordinate that. But that is also on that Saturday. Now, on this same day, on the Saturday, or perhaps a day during that week, if it's possible, we want the commissioners to dedicate the Historic Documents Monument, which we just think is a fantastic idea. A gentle suggestion. The group really liked the idea of perhaps that being done at the senior center. And I don't know how far along you are with those kinds of thoughts. And I don't know, hopefully it's something from a timing standpoint that you can still do. But there's a lot of interest in your doing that. And then we have got proclamations coming from the federal government and the state government. Mark Meadows will introduce a bill that will recognize the City of Marion and McDowell County, and then our legislative delegation with the state will do the same thing. And so the commissioners and the Marion City Council would, perhaps on this day, receive representatives from the federal and state government and have those proclamations read. So that would be day one. On the 23rd, and this is another one of those things that if you haven't seen it, it's amazing what these people will do. But there will be a tea and a fashion show on Sunday the 23rd on that afternoon, and we're talking about primarily ladies, I guess, but men also, that will do from the Revolutionary War up through the later 19th century in period dress with period food and drinks and that kind of thing, music, etc. So that would be on the Sunday. Okay, there's kind of a gap of some days, and so there's still some opportunity here to add some things. But on the 27th, all fourth graders will tour the Carson House with an emphasis on the 175th anniversary of the city and the county. On the 28th, the city of Marion is taking the lead and will host and there's been some different discussions about what this needs to look like, and this was one of the changes. But music and an event that would encourage businesses as well as restaurants and so forth to be open with live music and reenactors, and maybe more of an emphasis on historical cooking and recipes and that kind of thing. But the City of Marion and the Business Association will coordinate that. And again, that will be on Friday. On the 29th, events will culminate at the Carson House. A gentleman, if you know Freddie Bradburn, has written a play that will be performed at the Carson House, and there will be music and reenactors, and basically an event on that Saturday. Other activities discussed that are still figuring out how they're going to fit in. We're looking at trying, and this may be a stretch, but we're looking at trying to, the Mountain Gateway Museum is attempting to have artifacts that are at the State Museum displayed for a month in McDowell County at the Mountain Gateway Museum, and with a particular emphasis on Davy Crockett and Andrew Jackson, both of whom stayed at the Carson House and have got ties to McDowell County. So that is something that we're looking at doing. May do a permanent display as well at the Carson House that would have McDowell County artifacts on the third floor. So that's something that Amanda is working on. The next one is really not hypothetical. This is happening. There will be at least 4 historic murals that will be placed in the downtown on buildings. But they will not be painted directly on buildings. They'll be painted on panels. And Troy, golly, what's his last name?
Elliott.
Yep. The guy that did all of the panels. Lucas.
Yeah, Troy.
Thank you. Don't tell him I forgot his last name.
It's on TV, Chase. So we won't highlight you. You know his last name.
Okay. Maybe Teresa can blip that part out. Troy Lucas has agreed to do the paneling. And so there'll be 4, perhaps 6 of those. And what the city will do with that is have a historic mural walk, or kind of a trail that you'll walk through the downtown and see these paintings. And so it just goes with all of the good things happening there. We're going to have a 175th anniversary coin minted. We did that for the 125th and the 150th, and so I've got prices on that, and we're looking at doing that. We're looking at doing a historic home tour by van, and so that's one that we got to get going on that. But that's one that we're looking at doing. Other things that we've talked about doing, but we've not nailed down enough to move them into the it's going to happen category, but things that have just been expressed by the citizens attending, is creating a time capsule and we've got one at the Senior Center that I don't remember the year it's to be open, but doing another one and having a time capsule placed somewhere, doing tours of historic churches, cemetery tours, some type of activity that would involve veterans, and there was a wine tasting on it. But those have not moved. Okay, so we meet, is it the next date, the 22nd? It's not this Thursday, but next.
24th.
24th. The next meeting of the committee is on the 24th. That's a Thursday at 5:30 at the Carson House. So we need to get word out. We've had about 10 to 15 people, down to as low as maybe 5 or 6, attend. So, having good participation and involvement is something that we would appreciate. But that next meeting is 5:30 on the 24th at the Carson House. And we just need to get the word out. It's time. So any questions? Comments, suggestions?
Chuck, quiet board.
I know.
It's amazing.
It's good.
And you're going to have some, you said you're going to have some coins printed for, yeah, would it be possible at all, some people might, would like to have one from, 25 years back, and the other, every how many times could you go back and reprint some of those and make them available?
It's a thought. You could do all three.
Yeah.
There are the 150th, apparently they're more available than the 150th. The 150th had silver in it and was a little pricier for that reason. The 125th was just a coin, and so what we've looked into is not doing silver as a coin. But yes, sir, we could look at doing all three.
Okay, other comments or questions?
I have one on the historic memorial. How does that look on the document memorial? Is that possible to do that and have it ready to dedicate?
They've told us, I think it's about a 6 to 8 week process once a site is identified, and that's if all the other counties and states they're working with line up. And I know we've looked at staff has looked at a couple of sites based on board discussion last month as far as the courthouse and the senior center, and we're just trying to get some of that coordinated with board members to look at. There's pros and cons of different locations.
I think Mitchell County, theirs is going up right now.
So do you have to have other county approvals for this county to move?
I think the final location.
Yeah, we're ready to move.
I'd love to see you ladies and gentlemen dedicate.
Settled in on an agreement on the location yet. We're still a little controversial on the location.
Well, if you want us to make a recommendation,
I think I heard the senior center in yours already.
The group discussed it and just thought next to the Veterans Memorial, it would be a place people could reflect. But that's.
And your senior center director, he's on record of saying he would love to have it up there when we've talked to him. So.
Okay. All right, Chuck. Well, keep working hard, and we'll look forward to hearing from you in days to come.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, sir.
For your time.
All right, at this time, let's move to our 6 o'clock appointment. This appointment is concerning a bicycle plan, and we have Stephen with us tonight. Mr. Wooden, go ahead, sir, and lead out.
We may need a moment for a technical adjustment on
At this time, we'll take a brief recess. All right, after a brief recess for a technical matter, the board is back in session, and we have Stephen with us tonight to talk about the bicycle plan. So, Stephen, the floor is yours, sir. Welcome to the boardroom.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the time. And my name is Steve Bzomowski. I'm with Alta Planning and Design, and I had the pleasure to work on this project, the Isothermal Regional Bicycle Plan. And I'm going to run through an overview presentation. Feel free to stop me with any questions during the presentation or afterwards as well, and certainly in the future. That is the wrong way. So a little background on the process. this project covered not only McDowell County, but also Polk, Rutherford, and Cleveland counties. And this was funded by NCDOT. They fund one regional bike plan per year. This past year, the Isothermal Planning and Development Commission successfully applied for the grant. And so we worked on their behalf with Carol Fuller for this regional bicycle plan. And a little bit of background about why we do these types of projects, touches on a lot of different pieces of community, and, mobility is a big part of it. There's certainly a big tourism aspect to bicycling, but a big thrust of this plan is transportation. Bicycling can serve as a easy connector across town or to your school or neighborhood park, and certainly fits in a niche within the community transportation system. Important safety component, of course. We've all been in situations where, whether in a car or on a bike, where it can get a little scary out there, and we want to make sure that we are aware of best practices for infrastructure and strategy as far as implementing bicycle safety in communities. Economic development, certainly an important tourism component to that, but also simple economic diversification, business connectivity, another way for economic growth, and health aspects, all these things tie into overall quality of life that are important aspects of the reasons why we work on projects like this and other community efforts in North Carolina. So our project steering committee that guided the process was made up of local government officials, nonprofit organizations such as the McDowell Trails Association, and private businesses that were, had interested residents throughout the community. So we had a lot of people involved across the region, NCDOT engineers from the region as well. Public outreach, we had an online website that had an interactive map, online comment form. We went to public outreach events at the beginning of the process here in McDowell County, went to the farmers market here in Marion. And then when we had the draft isothermal regional bike plan ready this past January, we had an open house at the Corporating YMCA. Just a quick highlight here from what we heard from public outreach. This is from the comment form. A big aspect, and this is common around what we hear around North Carolina and working on projects across the Southeast, is that this question asks, what kind of, basically, the likelihood that the following type of bike facility would influence you to bike more often. So, what makes you feel more safe? And a lot of people, want to have separation from automobiles, greenways, separated bike lanes that have some kind of physical barrier between space for bikes and cars. There's certainly an appropriate context for places where you can share the road and paved shoulders. So there's context-specific considerations that we want to make sure that you have at your fingertips and that are outlined in this document as far as design recommendations go. And this is just a little snippet from that. So one thing I want to point out here too, and the Small Town and Rural Multimodal Networks Design Guide is something that's a document that was recently released by the FHWA, and is sort of the latest, greatest, bicycle, pedestrian, trail infrastructure guide that's out there. It has a really great companion website, ruraldesignguide.com, that is really speaks to the McDowell County, the small town rural community needs that are out there, and different types of options that you want to consider. A lot of great guidance on traffic volumes, speed limits that can help you. And when you're thinking about a roadway project that might include a bike facility, what type of facility that might include, with specific widths, specific barrier considerations. And so it's a really great document to have out there. It's referenced a lot throughout this, the isothermal regional bike plan, but something that's important to have at your fingertips when working on these types of projects. And so the recommendations, there's infrastructure, programmatic, policy recommendations. It's a comprehensive document. We pulled together the public input, destination connectivity, mapping analysis, looking at traffic volumes, looking at existing crashes, where they're happening, looking at existing infrastructure, previous plans. There's a lot of great planning and design efforts that have been done. McDowell and Marion did a bike plan a couple years ago, and the Fontaflora State Trail is currently going, under study in McDowell County, and so there's a lot of pieces to build on that have been looked at in the past, and so we want to make sure we're not reinventing the wheel, and working efficiently to synthesize, areas that where multi-jurisdictional efforts could work efficiently together. And so, we look at short-term priority project considerations, low-hanging fruit type projects in conjunction with, long-term visioning, potential strategic next steps. So just a quick snippet here about, 27 priority projects were outlined throughout the region, 7 in McDowell County. And these are projects that could be sort of those next steps, like the Peavine Trail, Catawba River Greenway, thinking about connectivity through Marion and trying to, work towards more thorough connectivity to these trail systems and look how this can strategically develop over time. And so those project sheets have, opportunities and challenges, considerations for each of those projects, planning level cost estimates, and multi-jurisdictional considerations that you would want to look at when considering that type of project. In long-term vision, there's a lot of cool opportunities, not only across these 4 counties, but in connectivity to counties outside the study area. There's certainly, when you think about the Peavine Trail, for example, connecting to McDowell Technical Community College, that old rail line used to go all the way into Rutherford County, and the Thermal Belt Rail Trail is a really neat project in Rutherford County that has recently secured some funding for expansion all the way, north of Ruth and towards Gilkey. And you kind of see some of these pieces start to come together over time. And so it was really neat to have the McDowell Trails Association, talking to the Rutherford Outdoor Coalition and local representatives on how strategically some of these pieces could actually come together, over time. And, some of these things certainly aren't going to be, in the short term, but it's important to have that long-term picture as well when you're working on projects and trying to make the most efficient use of resources that are available. And just to highlight from the appendix, some of those kind of, statewide efforts, there's a state bike route system, the, Mountain Sea Trail goes through McDowell County, the Fontaflora State Trail is another project that, from Lake James to over to Asheville. There's been a lot of work in the Lake James area in the Burke County side. Now in McDowell County, there's a study going on between here and Lake James. And so there's some really neat opportunities to think about. And the appendix highlights some of those pieces as well. And so I just want to make sure you see that in there as well. So policy, a lot of people gravitate toward the maps and some of the projects in real life, but policy is really important too, because there's a lot of ways that bicycle transportation and infrastructure can be efficiently incorporated into roadway projects. And I'm sorry that the font looks a little funky on here. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but it's a little bit cut off in that one picture right there. But complete streets language, and when roadways go under construction or repaving or major rehab, sometimes there's opportunities to fit bicycle facilities within that as well. So it's a lot easier to do those types of projects, with roadway work instead of trying to retrofit. So we want to make sure that we're being as efficient as we can when those opportunities do pop up. Not that it's always easy, but there's a lot of things to consider in those types of projects, and policy-wise, there's a lot of things that can be implemented, as part of that. Programmatically, the Carolina Thread Trail and Cleveland County and McDowell Trails Association, Watch For Me NC campaign. There's a lot of sort of non-infrastructure elements that are really important to becoming a bicycle-friendly community. That just having awareness. McDowell Trails Association has a great video on just bicycling on the Greenway. Simple components like that can help incorporate. When a new trail gets built, like the Catawba River Greenway, it's important to communicate those efforts and get people on the trail, make sure people know what's there. And there's efforts with Active Routes to School organization that helps work on not only infrastructure connectivity to schools, but also programmatic elements to get kids active. May is Bike Month and Walk Month, and trying to work on active living from a myriad of efforts, of ways. Another cool part about this project is these bicycle brochure maps that were produced for the plan. So what these essentially are, they show where existing bike facilities are, the Peavine Trail and Catawba River Greenway and, Point Lookout Trail, and including a lot of the mountain bike trails up in Pisgah National Forest are highlighted on these. But the idea is that if you're a bicyclist that wanted to go ride across McDowell County, this highlights roads, that might be better than others. Roads that have higher traffic volumes and higher speeds are, highlighted a certain color. So, some cyclists still ride on those roads, but, a lot of cyclists would want to avoid some of those roads. And, there's a lot of low traffic volume, scenic, really beautiful, spectacular roads across McDowell County that people love to get out there and ride recreationally, but transportation-wise too. But even thinking across, Marion, there's certain streets that you'd want to avoid and certain streets you want to be strategic for. So this kind of puts that on a map format which is really neat. And it also highlights destinations, things like the Carson House and things like, destinations, Catawba Falls, and McDowell County is endowed with spectacular scenery and spectacular open space and a community, and so looking at ways that visually they can connect is pretty neat. Today, and just looking at what we can do today. And so there's also further resources on the flip side with where you can find further information and that sort of thing. So in sum, how to use this plan. This can help you inform in decision making for roadway projects that come up. It's a great resource book. The project sheets and cost estimates can help, establish and help you decide, what you might want to do in a certain corridor if you want to figure out, specific bicycle infrastructure. Programmatically, policy, funding, design, best practices are at your fingertips here. And so use this document to, leverage dollars that might be out there from state government, from private sector dollars that are out there, from nonprofit dollars that are out there. This is an opportunity to try to find partnerships that could help make some of these reality. And so, certainly the bicycle brochure maps is a great opportunity to promote, McDowell County. It's spectacular, and it's a great tourism opportunity that can highlight it. But also, there's a utilitarian transportation component to it as well. And so with that, thank you very much for your time. It's been really wonderful to work here, and a pleasure. And any questions you may have, I'm happy to answer now, or feel free to contact me anytime as well.
Okay. Mr. Wooten, we have to take action tonight to endorse the bicycle resolution, correct?
Yes, sir. I think that would help them as well as help us.
Okay. So May's Bike Month, Walking Month, and so appropriate you're here tonight during this month to present the information we have seen. From what I've read, it's a home run. A year in the planning, tons of input by lots of people, an economic impact potentially as this gets up and off the ground, and the most important thing, the health benefits for the people who ride. So I know they were having a ride today. I guess that was, I don't know what group that was. Was that the Salt on Mount Mitchell? Well, I went out Sugar Hill Road down Zion Hill, and I sort of had to play, get in behind that crowd. So anyway, what's the pleasure of the board concerning the resolution supporting the isothermal regional bicycle plan?
Make a motion we approve the resolution supporting the isothermal regional bicycle plan.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, second. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. All right. Stephen, thanks for being here, and thank you for your hard work on that.
Yeah, and thank you so much for your time.
Yes, sir. We appreciate it. If we can get the lights on around the side now, we'll move to our next item, item C under old business, and this is the Spaulding Road Greenway update. Mr. Wooten, go ahead, sir.
Sure. Speaking of greenways and outdoors, could have had one on the Catawba River Greenway, but we skipped that this month. But anyway, the Spaulding Road, again, the bridge that is out on that Greenway washed out several months ago, and we have hired, and so the board authorized moving forward with the repair. We've hired an engineer from a company called Headwaters Engineering. He's designed a workable solution for us. We sent out bid requests, I believe, about a week ago, and they're due in this Friday to Mr. DePoyster. We sent them primarily to local, I think all local companies. There's about 4 or 5 that have done projects similar that can handle this, and hopefully can get them going very soon and get that reopened completely. Our staff did build a temporary bridge. It has held up numerous rainstorms since it was built, so it's a testament to their construction ability, I think. But people are still able to kind of get around, but we definitely want to do the permanent fix. So no requested action, just wanted to update you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let's move to item D under old business. This is the volunteers at the animal shelter. And we appreciate the animal advocate groups in McDowell County that do a wonderful job. We've got some of them present here tonight. And so hats off to y'all from our board for partnering and trying to help meet a need right here. So, Mr. Wooten, with that being said,
Sure.
the floor is yours.
Definitely, I mentioned some folks in the room that have been involved and interested animal welfare for a very long time in the county, and some may have even asked years and years ago about having been able to volunteer at our animal shelter. And we've mentioned prior meetings that there was always a concern about liability whenever you have an environment like this where you're bringing in whether employees or volunteers or guests or what have you, there's always a risk. But we looked into some of the liability concerns as far as insurance. There wasn't an issue with our liability carrier. There was somewhat of an issue, a very minor issue with our workers' compensation carrier. They consider volunteers much in the same way they do employees. So if you have volunteers doing a task, whether it's vacuuming the carpet here or feeding a dog at the animal shelter, they really don't look at whether they're an employee or a volunteer. They're just someone working in that environment. So we have to include, and we do currently include volunteers in our workers' compensation coverage, and it's based on the hours per year on average. So staff works about 2,080 hours a year, and so we can just about guess how much volunteer hours we would have at a shelter based on the size and the scope and that sort of thing. And so we did talk to our workers' compensation carrier. The cost is very minimal to add on, hours at a volunteer basis at our shelter. It was very, very low, maybe $200 impact. So again, very minimal. And so we had the insurance concerns kind of put behind us. Brought that to the board's attention, I think, at last month's meeting. The board asked that we start to get a little more solid of a proposal. And so I have met with Mr. Randall Thomas, who's the Public Works Director, and Caitlin Settlemeyer, who is the Animal Shelter Director, in the last couple of weeks to at least get the conversation started about on the ground floor of a program. And so you have some information in front of you. A lot of what has been talked about is not, someone said reinventing the wheel. This is not reinventing the wheel. This is based on good practice from other shelters. We looked at Yadkin County. They're a similar county to us size-wise. Their shelters are very similar in size. And they've had a volunteer program for many years. It's been very successful. So we have some of their documents that we've looked at, some of their practices. Ms. Caitlin has also volunteered at the Asheville Humane Society and took some of her experience there and put into a recommendation. So essentially what you have, and again, this is a draft and it's very much subject to change based on your input. What they would request is that all volunteers, we would want to treat a volunteer essentially like they were applying for a job. So we would do a background check and probably a drug test. There are controlled substances at the shelter, so we would need to be very careful there. But we would essentially go through that process with any volunteers that would like to work there, volunteer there. What they're requesting is that all volunteers complete about a 1.5, 2-hour mandatory class pertaining just to just shelter standards and rules, how to properly clean and disinfect cages, how to properly socialize with an animal, cat and dog basic behavior, kind of your animal care 101. And so this is very basic stuff. Most of the folks that are going to volunteer there or show interest probably has some familiarity with animals. But again, we just want to be very sure. And so they would have to complete the 101 class and then do the 201 class at a later date. But we are under so many rules from the state level that we want to make sure folks are understanding, if they're going to help us clean dog bowls, they have to be dipped in, bleached water and rinsed with hot water, all these things that are very important that we have to follow, our staff has to, and they would be expected to follow as well. So again, getting that basic level and then get them into higher level class. And so we would limit the number of folks signed up in that class. It is a small facility, folks know that. So probably 5 or 6 per class, just so the staff isn't overwhelmed and the facility's not overwhelmed. So any questions before I keep going?
Actually, I just want to say thanks to the volunteers for meeting, and I'm sure you've got input from the volunteers, lots of good input. And I'm very comfortable with the document. With one change for myself is the age. With you may mention of the controlled substances at the shelter.
Right.
I would prefer somebody that's 18 or above being in there for myself.
And that was a discussion we had, wanting to involve younger people, but recognizing there is some risk there. There are controlled substances, et cetera. And so we went back and forth in the discussion, 16, 18, even younger than 16 if they had an adult. But we could limit it just to 18-year-olds.
I think bringing young people into it would be a great idea and a great thing. Personally, I really would. My opinion would be to let younger people come and get involved in it because it would be good for them. And I don't know. I think that under supervision, what would be the problem?
We could maybe a compromise if you had a younger age, they had to be accompanied by a parent or a guardian perhaps. So no offense, so our staff isn't parenting the child, which I don't think anyone wants them to do, but if you had, a responsible guardian or, not just an older buddy, but someone that's legally responsible for that child, person.
Under 16.
So we can work on the age.
Yeah, I don't think, personally, I don't think we should limit it to 18 and older. And that's personally. Everybody has an opinion on that, but personally, I don't think we should limit it to 18 and older.
My only concern is what Ashley said, the adult would have to be, instead of focusing on doing whatever they're volunteering to do, instead of the staff having to watch the younger person, which is great to have kids around animals, but then the parent has to start watching the younger person, and then,
But I had somebody come to me the other day that was, and it was a parent with their child, and the child was about probably 12, 13-year-old, and this parent told me, said she is going crazy wanting to volunteer help at the animal shelter and work with the animals and just be a help. So, I don't know, where do you draw the line, and I don't think this child would be a problem at all. I think she would be an asset.
I'll support whatever the board decides to do. I mean, I'm not going to fall out, but for myself, I would be more comfortable. But whatever the board does, I support the board. So it doesn't matter, really.
We need to be offering our young people more opportunities to learn things and to get out and experience different things. Keeps them out of trouble. Give them something to do besides Pokemon.
And I'm assuming there's a lot of checks and balances with controlled substances down there, so that wouldn't be something that would be freely accessible to anybody young.
Yeah, you could not have anything like that.
Right.
If you're looking at from EMS, you couldn't have a 13-year-old pushing narcotic. Absolutely not. It's not going to happen. If it is, it's going to be some big-time trouble, which it should be our staff administering something like that instead of the volunteers. Number one, it takes liability. Number two, that's just 16 and 18 is too young to be handling something like that. But as far as working, I have the same concerns. 12, you talk about the class 101. My thinking was if you got those 12-year-olds involved in taking the classes on the smaller animals like the pups or whatever that may not be quite as aggressive or something with them, and you involve them like that with the parent and a legal guardian, because we will become a dumping ground. I'm telling you, they will come, dump the kids off, and leave as a babysitting service. Now, typically, the groups may not see that as much. I promise you, any other program, if you coach a ball team, they're 12 years old, 8 years old, they will leave and you'll sit there for an hour waiting on a parent to come back.
Pick them up, yeah.
And that's what happens. It's bare facts. It's facts. If you want to tell me if I'm wrong, you put me in my place, and I'll, like my sister, is that I think we should involve them at a younger age. But what age and how many, is there hours required, or can we get them in the 101 at 12? And then when they turn 16, 15, then wherever that 102 class is coming in, then they've already had the training, they can jump right in and help. I mean, I don't want to limit and say, well, 12-year-olds can't be, because you're going to find some 12-year-olds more mature than 18-year-olds.
Well, that girl that was 10 years old, I thought was premature in here the first.
That's exactly right. You could probably have taken her and put her right to work. But I think you may have to make sure that we don't become a babysitting service for those younger students.
Has our attorney looked at that particular item?
He's not.
I would feel comfortable on our attorney looking at an age limit and getting input from him, because I agree, Tony and Lynn, what you're saying. We have a just last month was the focus on child abuse and prevention month and awareness, and we're very fortunate to have the dog, the therapy dog. One of the smaller counties in the state that has one. We're one of the only one small counties that actually has one of those animals, and animals are therapeutic to kids. They can really be used in a great way. I just want to make sure that on the legal side, once the attorney, I'll feel more comfortable after the attorney reviews that item and gives feedback to the board before I won't take action. I'll support the document and look forward to the volunteers going in and helping, and we appreciate the volunteers doing that. But we need to make sure we do it legally correct.
Can we have him look at that before our next meeting?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we'll have this back on the agenda in the month of June.
Yes, sir. And I was just going to add that the staff is very excited to work with folks and welcome them in there. So.
Okay, great. Sounds like a new day in McDowell County for animal advocates and county staff partnering together. So great job. We're excited about it. Let's move to the next item, and this would be item number E under old business, facilities updates. Mr. Wood, go ahead, sir.
Right. This has been the courthouse update for a long time. I thought I would add in some other information you requested. The courthouse project did start on April 23rd with beam construction being very much underway. They have moved to daylight work, so they're not doing as much at night. There may be some limited work from now on, but most of the work they're doing is during the day. They did do some night work as far as cutting and jackhammering, and if you're in the downtown area over those couple of weeks, you probably heard some work. Again, what they've done mostly so far is some demolition on the first level of the parking deck and the second level. And they'll really get started doing additional demolition, but what they can do in the daytime and not affect operations. There will be a construction meeting this Friday, and that will be a monthly meeting, and we will update. We'll get minutes from that and report back future meetings. We'll mention the parking. It was a big concern from staff and others on the impact from shutting the parking deck down completely. And just like any move, you have some speed bumps, but it has been a fairly smooth process. I think some of us, yours truly, is getting more exercise. But it has gone fairly well. We do have some overflow lights that have we've not really had to utilize that much, but we do have them just in case. And so that's been a positive. Last month, moving on, you voted to authorize the relocation of staff to the lower level of the senior center building. Staff is working on that now. As you can imagine, one tenant moves out, another essentially is moving in. There's phone, internet, et cetera, that has to be thought about. So we've been talking to our phone and internet vendors to get service there. There's also some minimal renovation that will need to take place to convert from a medical office to a office use. And so that is being quoted now by different contractors in town. Still, it's looking like a July move. That's the earliest that phone and that sort of thing could be installed. So still looking at that move in the new fiscal year. You had asked for some information on the vacated space in this building. Big intention would be to move all of tax assessing on the first floor. They're currently split over 2 floors. And so we would want to make sure all of that department is on the same floor. And after that move and a couple of other adjustments, there will be 3, 4, 5 offices available for other use on this floor. And I have heard different interests from different departments, but not that many have been forthcoming as of yet. I think they're waiting to see how everything shakes out. But we'll see how that goes as far as any relocation. And we'll be talking to Mr. DePoyster in the next couple of days on some of his thoughts, and we'll bring back a recommendation probably at next month's meeting. He had to be out for a family emergency.
Okay, comments, questions? There being none, let's move to our next item. Item A under new business, this would be administrative items. And there's quite a few. Mr. Wooten, go ahead and lead us out, sir.
Take a deep breath. There's a typo in your, I guess, first or second paragraph. There's actually 4 policies. One was added, and I'll highlight that. There are several policies we're asking for first reading. A couple of these are based on some of our neighboring counties' actions on credit cards and procurement. So these are based on the state treasurer's recommendation. So you have a credit card policy. Again, this is brand new, so this is the first reading. So please take these and read them in your free time. You also have a, scroll down, there's a purchasing policy. We have somewhat of a procurement policy now. This would supplant that, and this would bring us more in line with state and federal requirements. You also have make sure I'm reading them in order. A lot to go through here, sorry. You next have again, another brand new policy. It's a conflict of interest policy. And a lot of this is somewhat of a repetition of statute, but again, the state treasurer's office is asking each county and municipality to have these on file. It's just a good idea. And you also have the county travel policy. This is obviously something that's existing, and we've highlighted the yellow changes that we'd like for you to consider. Some of it has to do with when travel forms have to be turned in, and also bringing some of the dollar amounts up to current day standards, I guess. We try to do that every 4 or 5 years because there's inflation. Meals are more expensive, hotels are more expensive than they were 5 years ago. So again, these are all first readings on these 4 policies.
Okay.
So no action requested. The next one, and if it's okay, I'll just read it and ask for action on that so we don't lose track. You have a request, and this is sort of a past tense now, a request from the Recreation Department to offer a swimming pool season pass to be given away at Relay for Life. So I said, if you said no, I would pay for it out of my pocket. So I probably shouldn't have said that. But I would ask that you.
You got your checkbook with you?
I left it at home. So please, I ask you to approve that.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board concerning the free pass to the swimming pool?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign.
Thank
You
you.
don't have to pay for it.
Okay,
You're
thank
good.
you. I squirmed a little bit. I did not volunteer on the second one. It's probably a lot more. Public Works and Cooperative Extension / Keep McDowell Beautiful are requesting the waiver of tipping fees for trash collected at Lake James cleanup. I do not have a total, but I understand as far as a dollar amount or tonnage, but there was quite a bit picked up this year, and it's usually a couple of $1,000s.
And we standard historically have waived that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move we waive it.
All right, second discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Madam Clerk, did you get that motion to second?
Was everybody?
I think Mr. Greene edged out Mr. Brown for the motion, and the second, you get to pick. All right, let's move on to the next item.
You have the next two are sort of related, but I'll still break them up if that's okay, just because of the dollar amount. You have a request from Mr. Keller to purchase, reading glasses, purchase an ambulance. You authorized the bidding of this several months ago, and you have two quotes in your packet. One is from Northwestern Emergency Vehicles for $199,998, and one from Atlantic Emergency Vehicles of $240,925. If you authorize the purchase, we will address that in the financing next.
Okay, standard, we do this each year. If we don't, we'll get behind and have a lot of cost in a certain year. So what's the pleasure of the board?
What's the difference in the vehicles on that kind of much of a difference in the bid? They bid on the same vehicle?
It is pretty much the same standard vehicle. It's a Ford, I believe a F-350. A lot of it has to do with how the boxes are outfitted. It mostly comes down to the actual box itself and not the vehicle, is where you see a lot of the difference in the price. We have purchased numerous vehicles over the years from Northwestern, and they're a very reputable company. We have purchased vehicles from Atlantic before, and they have been a good company, but they have had issues in the past.
Okay.
So, and again, Northwestern is the lowest.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, we approve the bid award to Northwestern Emergency Vehicles out of Jefferson, North Carolina in the amount of $199,998.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, Mr. Wooten, proceed on.
Again, related, you have a financing request, and there's quite a bit to be financed. Ford F-450, ambulance is included in the quote. There were 2 Ford Interceptor sedans for the sheriff's office, 3 Dodge Durangos, I believe also for the sheriff's office, 1 Baylor, that should be for Public Works. And so you have, again, the ambulance, 2 Ford sedans, 3 Dodge Durangos, and 1 Baylor. You have a quote from BB&T for 2.9% of a period of 4 years, payment starting in November, and that's the lowest financing bid. Ask you approve the resolution.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move we approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, Mr. Wooten.
We're getting close, I promise. You had one request to waive occupancy late listing fees. This is a new business. They are from out of state, and the state they came from where they had this type of business, that state actually collected the occupancy tax, and so they sent their occupancy tax to Raleigh because that's what they were used to in their prior state, and they didn't realize it was one payment went to the state and one came to McDowell County, and so that they've obviously been corrected, but they're asking that the late listing be waived. So.
They've paid their taxes just.
That's right.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, we waive it.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign.
Okay, just a few announcements and we'll be done with these items. GF 47 transfers between line items and appropriates fund balance and funds received in emergency services. GF 48 transfers between line items at the library. GF 49 appropriates adoption fees at the animal shelter. GF 50 appropriates fees at the sheriff's office. GF 51 transfers funds in the DSS department for the transit department startup. And this is something you approved, I believe, 2 months ago. GF 52 appropriates funds for the juvenile detention line item. GF 53 appropriates funds in the juvenile crime prevention function. GF 54 appropriates funds received in rescue squad billing. GF 55 appropriates sales tax funds. GF 56 appropriates funds and transfers between line items for health insurance charges. 911 F4 transfers between line items in the 911 fund. Reval Fund F1 appropriates fund balance for the revaluation contract. Enterprise 1 allocates revenue in the Waste Enterprise Fund, and SI2 allocates revenue sources for the self-insurance fund. That's all the amendments and all the admin items.
Okay, any comments or questions? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve GF 47 through 56, 911 F4, F1, and Enterprise 1, S12.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay. Let's move to tax matters, item B. Mr. William, go ahead, sir.
Tax matters are routine. Ask you approve as presented.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve tax matters, releases, refunds, rebills, whatever.
Okay, we have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay, at this time, let's move to board appointments. And we have your ballot for you. We have the Library Board of Trustees. This is a second reading. You can vote for two. Two have applied. Tourism Development Authority, you can vote for one, and one has applied. And the Tourism Development Authority, vote for one there, and two have applied. And McDowell Tech is just a first reading right there. So we'll go ahead and Madam Clerk, you're receiving applications for that one currently.
I will after we have the first reading.
Okay, all right.
I will advertise.
Okay. All right, and we await the tabulation of the votes.
I did.
I'm hanging chads on this vote.
The calculation should not last long.
Okay, for the Library Board of Trustees, it was unanimous for Kelly Soulsby and Michael Thomas. For the Tourism Development Authority under 50-room lodging, it was unanimous for Bridget Walters. For the Tourism Development Authority tourism-related business, it was unanimous for Bruce Brown. And I will advertise the McDowell Community College Board of Trustees as first reading.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's move to our next item, item D, under new business. This is, oh, go ahead, Ms. Wood.
We also would ask that you maybe make some decisions, or if you wanted to put them off on Commissioner Crawford's board appointments. There's a list on the memo of the various boards and committees that he served on.
Okay, so let's go ahead and handle that now. That would be appropriate. Commissioner Crawford served on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boards. For those who are watching, the board meets once a month at our big monthly meeting, but we're on lots of other committees and boards. And so you can see Commissioner Crawford was on 7 different committees. So we don't just show up here for one meeting and that's it, we go home. Lots of work goes into being a county commissioner. So with that being said, I guess is there any commissioner, we need to get Brenda, Commissioner Vaughn, on about 7 boards, it looks like tonight, at least. No, we won't do that. We won't weigh you down that heavy right out the gate. But is there any current commissioner that has a board that they serve on currently that they want to bring up now, and as far as maybe they want to talk about getting off the board or switching to one of these that are right here? Okay, Commissioner Greene, volunteer for board that all right, good. So Commissioner Greene is volunteer for the District Health Board. Great. All right.
6 years, we're stuck.
All right, now, Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes.
You see the remaining boards, is there a board that you have a special interest in now? Something that really strikes you?
I am prepared to do whatever's needed. How's that?
Good, okay. Welcome to the other 6 boards. Is there another commissioner who wants to pick up one of the Commissioner Crawford boards? So we won't wait down Commissioner Crawford. There's 6 probations. I got a full plate. I can take any awards.
That's in the board. A lot of these are more than today.
And like I say, hey, I'm good with it. That'll be fine. If I say I can't handle it, I'll come back to you.
Last chance.
I'd say give him to her, she thinks,
All right, well,
I'm looking down pretty heavy.
well, Commissioner Vaughn, welcome to the Joint Utility Committee, the Hospital Planning, the RDO, the Tourism Development Authority, Transportation Advisory Board, and Hospital Roundtable. Now, let's go ahead and take action to approve Mr. Greene on the health and Mr. Vaughn on the remaining boards. What's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion, we accept.
Discussion, all in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, wonderful.
What time is it?
He has the,
We'll be in Polk County, starting 6:15 tomorrow.
Okay, great. I've covered everything that let's move on to the next item, item D, panhandling discussion. And I asked our county manager to place this on the agenda because I've received complaints about people harassing, panhandlers harassing women in cars as they exit off I-40 at the truck stop out there. So, our planning board does a great job, and they do a lot of different things to the board as far as ordinances, and we'll see one of those in a minute. What's the pleasure of the board? Comments first, and the pleasure of the board to have the planning board review this.
They'll be panhandling in general, right, even in Walmart parking lot, they'll sue you.
Only in the county, not the city. Yeah, not the county, city. Okay, discussion. All those in favor, motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Item E, fox hunting tracking discussion. Mr. Wood, go right ahead, sir, lead us out of your mind.
Right, and Mr. Audrey, you can come out of the microphone.
This was something, the gentleman this year that approached the board a couple months ago and asked that it make consideration of this and send us to the planning board again for discussion and deliberation. I think Mr. Harmon can let us know how that.
The planning board listened to Mr. Roberts' presentation and gathered as much research as we could gather. And the board could not find any reason not to recommend that a fox hunting and trapping law be enacted in the county. Basically because when a trapper legally traps, let's say a coyote, and he catches a fox in the trap, if the fox is maimed or injured in any way, he has to release it into the wild. He can't dispose of it, put it out of its misery. If he catches a fox in his trap and the fox is dead, he has to dispose of the fox so the pelt can't be sold. So the planning board felt like on the humane side, it might be better to enact some type of legislation or county legislation to go to the state to see if it would be approved. Their recommendation was no bag limit, no tag in the county.
I wouldn't go along with that myself, personally. Sir, can I ask you, how many foxes would you normally catch a year by accident? You know,
sometimes a dozen or more. Some years you might not catch that many. But the Wildlife Committee says that if I catch a fox in McDowell County, we have no fox law on the book whatsoever. And that if I catch one here and its legs broke, bones sticking out, or a coyote comes by and kills it, I've got to take it out of the trap, send it off.
But you'll catch up to 12 a year?
Can. Yeah, it's incidental. Because unfortunately, trapping coyotes, they're canines, foxes are canines, your domestic dogs are canines, they're all attracted to that set. And
I agree, there needs, you know, the coyote needs to be trapped. That's a problem, it's a nuisance, and it causes a lot of problems. It's caused me problems on my farm killing cats.
Yes.
But, you know, the foxes, the coyotes have about obliterated the gray fox especially. You know?
not really, you'd be surprised actually how many is here that you don't see. That you actually, when you're trapping.
Gray fox?
Yes, sir.
I haven't seen one in several years.
Because I'm on the board of directors of the Trapping Association, so I do a lot of classes and stuff with the biologists, and the state biologists are backing this also. As far as that
So
goes.
they're saying that there's...
Yeah, no state or county that we've imposed a fox trapping law that the fox population has dove down to where they say, no, we don't want to trap no more. They've actually helped increase the coyote catches, it's up to catches, because you're not trying as much as safeguard against catching a non-target like fox.
And it's impossible to trap one without breaking his leg.
No, sir, it's not impossible. Yeah, I turn them loose every year that don't get, you know, they may walk away with a limp, but then a day later they're wide open again. I've got one trapping partner, we catch this one red fox, we probably caught it about a dozen times in the last 3 years.
Really?
Yes, sir.
So he's still surviving?
Oh, he comes right back, he about got to where he sat there like, okay, I know the routine. So.
Well, so they can be saved without injury. I would maybe go along with a bag limit on them or something. I couldn't, in my own conscience, feel good about saying,
you know,
trap them all.
No, we don't trap them all. Ain't no way we can ever catch all of them.
We'll hear from some other commissioners.
And Ron, anything else you'd add?
When we asked Mr. Robertson, there are only about 22 licensed trappers in the county. And out of those 22, the majority of them are
pretty much water trappers. They trap the beaver and the otter. And, you know, we probably about half and half or something like that.
You trap some groundhogs too?
Yes, sir.
We have an abundant supply of
As,
groundhogs.
as an animal damage control agent, I can't trap groundhogs.
You might catch about 100 or so out there at Pizza Hut on that big bank up in there.
But the thing about it is, you can talk to our local wardens. Groundhogs are one of the most poached animal there is, because people say traps for groundhogs, there is no trapping season open right now. And they're trapped. So I can trap them if they're causing damage to your property, undermining your house with deprivation permits.
I thought there was an open season.
Or you can shoot them at any time, you just cannot trap them. Basically, the only place that's got any open trapping season right now is east of I-77, and that's for nutria. All other animals are closed.
My son tried to possum for his 15th birthday the other day, and I posted all over Facebook. I mean, we had to turn it loose. I see we did. Okay, I talked to a gentleman today. He works at McDowell News, as a reporter, more towards the sports end. But his dad used to be a fox hunter here in McDowell. And he said that one of the things that's gone by the wayside for the young people here, down east, he said it is very large. You're starting to see the younger teenagers becoming more involved in fox hunting. Mm-hmm. They've got more like where they can have the deer populated in a fenced area, kind of not a preserve, but a hunting preserve. Yes. Yeah. And they're doing that with the foxes down there. And he was very interested in this particular topic. I asked him if he'd come tonight. His dad was very supportive.
I do like I like marketing my coyotes, and we sell them down to the preserves down there. So
yeah, he was. We discussed it, kind of like the same thing. The big thing here that we always grew up when we rabbit hunted and squirrel hunted and grouse hunted was fox issues, because there's so many. Rabbit was almost extinct. Now it's coyotes taken. But I mean, the fox ain't much different than a coyote if you look at it, but I wish they'd have open season on fox. There's a lot of red fox, may not be as many ground, but there's a lot of red. I see them up, especially in 226A and out in the lake. There's just a ton. So for me, I would support it 100%.
Okay. All right.
That's basically what we're trying to do. We're not just saying trapping, but also hunting as well, because we're not trying to say, okay, hunters can't enjoy it or trappers can't enjoy it. Right. We want the outdoorsmen to be able to enjoy it.
Right. Okay, any other comments or questions? There being none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Does this have to go to the planning board?
It does.
I'll make a motion that we accept requests to open up for fox hunting or trapping in McDowell County once again.
With no bag limit, no limit. Is that what you're saying? No limit?
There's no bag limit on coyotes.
That was what the planning board recommended, correct?
No bag limit, no county
Was
tag.
the recommendation of the planning?
And the planning board was unanimous in their recommendation, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you got a pretty diverse group on the planning board, right?
If I may interject, the legislature would have to do a local law for fox hunting. And so if you wanted to make the motion request that local law be passed, we can certainly do that.
I'll add that
part. And my understanding is Senator Hines and Dawson both are in agreement to back this program. I know I've seen where they have back to Mitchell County. They're also trying to get the same thing, legislation over there. So.
I'll amend my motion to include that, have that legislation passed.
At the planning board, do we have a second yet? Nobody second. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Had the planning board just looked at the trapping, have they had not looked at the actual hunting of the foxes? I'll make sure I'm clear.
They understood that the season would run from November 1st to the end of February for both.
For both, so that's what they had looked at. Okay.
Before I could vote yes on it, I'd have to know that there was a bag limit on it. I can vote for open season.
And the season runs, what's that season end?
Is it November 1st to the last
November
day of
1st to the
February?
last day of February. That runs in concurrence with the tracking season that North Carolina recognizes in this part of it. If you go down east, it's December, but here it's actually November 1st.
All right, another discussion. All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
So we're voting on it.
Yeah, we got a motion
nobody
second.
Just
Yeah, motion second. Okay?
say all in favor.
All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. Okay, thank you, Ron, for being here tonight. Have a great evening. Now, let's move to our next item. This would be citizen comment. Do we have anyone who is here? And I know somebody signed up already, but anybody else that's here that wishes to speak? Okay, y'all, at this time, let's move to reports communications. Does the county manager have anything that he's bringing up at this time?
No, sir, I just asked if you would adjourn to this Thursday at 4:30. You have 3 fire departments requesting consideration for fire tax increase. Then afterwards, I would present the budget recommendation for next year.
Okay, and what was that date?
This Thursday, 17th.
Okay. Any other reports, communication by board members or by the clerk before you go ahead and adjourn? There being none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Adjourn.
Yeah. All right, do we have a second? Second. Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, like sign. All right, meeting is over.